The Empire Space Census is the most comprehensive map of the New York State space ecosystem. And during our town hall in November 2022, we gave a brief update as to the status of our census and some of the most recent updates we have made to it. Please enjoy.
So a lot of this was presented in our last meeting. So we're gonna review some of the important parts from the census. Then we have some big updates as well. It's linked right here for those that haven't accessed it. It's on our website under the data section. So the first few slides are just recapping some of the important parts from the census before. This is sort of the top line takeaways from the census and from our early analysis. We have high points here. New York is generally a financial powerhouse. It's the same in the space sector. So we're one of the top, if not the top, source of space financing in the U.S. We also have a statewide civic network that's very strong, provides a strong talent pipeline. Similarly, we have a very strong academic and research infrastructure, also a lot of talent coming from there, and we have a baseline NASA presence, as Pat has touched on. Some of the areas to focus on, or sort of like gaps and areas to target. There are some barriers to finance. While we are a financing powerhouse, a lot of that money is not staying in the state or going to New York space companies. It ends up leaving the state, going to space companies outside. There's gaps in the environment, in networks and resources. A lot of what does exist here is not well connected, and that sort of leads to, as I touched on, money and other things, talent leaving the state. And then, similarly, there's a lot of clusters and fragmentation. Where stakeholders are connected, it's very local or very focused within one area. So there's a lot of room here to grow these connections and improve a lot of the ecosystem with networking. This is captured in the graphic on the right. You're able to see that we have strengths in space financing with business capital and services. We have strengths in talent in the space industry between the academic sector and the civic sector. But that's not really feeding into the economic engine here. There's sort of a break in that chain, damaging the amount of space companies, and sort of similarly there's pretty low legislative support. So we think there's a lot of room here to sort of connect the strong roots that do exist and make this ecosystem a lot stronger. To summarize this concisely, money and students are leaving the state, and we need to close the loop. Here's a sort of like quad chart or summary of the census and the analysis that we pulled out of it so far. A lot of data on this slide. This captures a lot of what we talked about last time. I'm just going to talk about some high points here. On the finance side, New York is generally number 2 in the U.S. with 18% of U.S. space investors. Depending on how you cut it, we're either number 1 on private equity space financing, or we're 2 in VC or for angel financing. Another way to look at that is that New York is the leader as far as like later stage space financing, and we're second to California for early stage financing. Some other important parts on the finance side, we're capturing a lot of sources of space financing in New York, 44 for high space involvement, and then 118 sources for high to moderate. And regionally, this is focused most in the city. On the private sector, on the company side, we're capturing, or I guess we're grouping these into 3 clusters. Core space having 3,000 jobs about, aerospace, which envelopes that, having about 9,000 jobs, and then defense, which is including those 2 as well, having about 30,000 jobs. So we're capturing a lot of jobs and a lot of employment across these various sectors. We have 163 unique entries or companies with locations here, and then 150 billion in global annual revenues for those companies that have a footprint in New York. On the future needs side, we're tracking manufacturing R&D as pretty big needs within these space companies. For academics, we have 103 institutions, including Europe schools with 151 degree programs, 147 student groups, and 34 civic institutions on campus. Some DEI initiatives as well, including 34 Europe schools. And then we're also capturing a K-12 presence with 59 entries. And then on the civic side, we have 117 planetariums, observatories, museums, rocket ranges, 26 middle and high schools, and 63 civic groups. We also have a few labs and a NASA presence across various universities. All in all, supporting 4,000 jobs statewide, with probably a strong undercount there. It's probably a lot more than that on the civic side.
Just a quick point on that slide for those who aren't aware of the MUREP acronym there. It stands for Minority University Research and Education Project. Those are schools that have specific partnerships with NASA to kind of broaden and expand the talent pool and research opportunities to historically underrepresented populations. So I just wanted to clarify what that acronym meant.
Thanks, Pat. Here's a graphic sort of showing how these various segments of this ecosystem align against the regions within the state, and sort of where regions are strong and where regions are weak. You can see the number of entries for each of those sectors: finance, academic, civic, companies, and then also astronauts across each of the regions. And you're able to sort of, looking at a few key examples here, for example, Western New York, you're able to see where they're strong in finance, academic, and civic, and less so on the companies and astronauts side. Or you're able to look at something like New York City and see that they're strong across all 5 of those sectors. We did a categories analysis. This is a new feature or new addition that we have to the census, where we've gave every entry in our private companies database a category based on their mission and work profile. And so we've sort of, by capturing each of these companies in a category, we've been able to analyze sort of where we have the most in a certain category across the state, and where our weaknesses are as well. There is more work to do here. We'll refine and update these moving forward. And this data is captured right now in a report as well. To call out some of the major ones here, we've captured 82 jobs 82 companies within the aerospace manufacturing category, 26 for telecommunications and electronics, 22 for aerospace development and support, 21 for Space Force and military, and 13 for space data. And the list goes on. We have a couple graphics here showing the data I just spoke about, but also some of the other census data. Here you're able to see how these categories break down across the state, where there is sort of, a lot of companies within aerospace manufacturing, for example, and then maybe fewer on the optics side, and so on. And then here's another graphic showing the distribution of companies throughout entries, I should say, throughout the state. So, regionally where these are focused, and, I think one key takeaway here is that there's a heavy focus in Long Island and then New York City.
Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed this presentation. To learn more about Empire Space, our work to grow the New York space ecosystem, and the census, please visit empirespace.org/data or empirespace.org/reports.